WITCHMAN Kickstarter is like fully funded.
Yeah, like
we reached the goal.
It seems to have burst. Like,
yes.
Talk about like your cup is running over.
Yeah,
like, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Hell yeah,
so,
great work, Tom.
Thanks, Matt. So yeah, that's. I mean, you know, it's happening. You know,
the WITCHMAN is going down. I proudly backed it, baby. Like,
thanks, I appreciate it.
And WITCHMAN is like it's like my favorite thing currently.
That's awesome. Yeah, me too.
It like hits me right in my sensibilities, like right at my core.
Yeah, I thought about it like when we were talking about Friday the 13th and how like I was saying like, you know what, I would like Friday the 13th better if Jason were kind of like a good guy. Like if he like looked scary.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I want him and Freddy Krueger and all of them to just be more like the Hulk or something, where they're like scary, misunderstood. Maybe they cause some trouble here and there, just in like, you know, in a bad mood or a rage or mistaken identity, but they mean well and they save the day when it comes down to like, that's what I, you know, so, and I like, you know, and that just sort of came out of our review of Friday the 13th.
What a blast, by the way.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was fun. And it was
with our Monster Squad play.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
In the midst of that, I kind of like realized like, oh yeah, like what I'm basically like the thing of like make the thing that you want, you know.
Absolutely.
And so I'm kind of making the thing like this kind of horror kind of scary looking character who's like, don't worry, he's on our side.
Yeah, like as the Friday the 13th series goes on, like the teens in the movie, they make them like more like horrible, where you're like you're supposed to be glad they're just like wow, I can't believe I'm praying. Like, I know this guy's a dick, but like I don't think he deserves better than this. Yeah, deserves to get his fucking head cut off.
Like, and like where does Jason come off? Like what who made him king? You know, who gave him the authority?
Yeah, WITCHMAN. I'm all in on WITCHMAN.
Cool.
Couldn't be more in on WITCHMAN.
No, that's awesome.
Like the vibe, the colors. Oh my god, Tom. The design, like everything is just like firing on all cylinders.
Thanks. I was talking to somebody about the Friday the 13th because like part 6 is the only one I've seen just and you know saw it here like as we live as we talked about it. And like I was talking to somebody else who didn't really know much about it either. And I was kind of like I think he kind of becomes a zombie. Yeah, under like there. And
I love what I also love about Friday the 13th is that like the continuity is like we have talked about this before, like kind of all over the place. Yeah, like in the first one, he pops up in a cameo as like a child, and then by number 2, it's like he's a grown man. And then he's like half zombie hybrid. Yeah. Then he switches in 6, like he's crossing over. And by 7 and 8, he's full blown like Night of the Living Dead. Like,
Night of the Living Dead, but with a mask. I saw somebody made like a drawing where it was like the cover of issue 1 of The Incredible Hulk, and it's Jason. So it's like him as the kind of like scrawny kid in the beginning, and then turn it into like the Hulk, turning into the big Jason, the sort of iconic Jason, just as an outsider who just kind of knows indirectly about those movies. In the first one, the way it's set up, like you're supposed, they talk about this kid, Jason, who like died at the camp, right? Yeah. And it was like neglect from the camp counselors or whatever. And then and you think all through the movie that this slasher is him back from the dead or something, and then you find out at the end it's his mom. It's his mom, which is probably why when I was a kid, somebody was telling me that Alfred Hitchcock directed the first Friday the 13th because it's got kind of like a psycho kind of twist to it. Yeah, and like Betsy Palmer, who I think played like Peter Pan on Broadway before. Nice. That's pretty great. That's good fake out. Yeah, like you would never expect her to go full on like slasher. And there's like, because Jason was added, like they mentioned Jason throughout the script, and then like he pops out as a jump scare at the end, right? Because then it's like they defeat her or something, and then he like his dead body that's been in the water all this time like jumps out and grabs her and pulls her in at the end. So it's like, I mean, it sounds like a cool thriller. Like I've never seen it, but we gotta watch them all. Because again, I think of my just mental image of the Friday the 13th movies is that they're just garbage. They're absolute trash, and that's like maybe the beauty of them. That's that's why they're so popular. But like that sounds actually like kind of an interesting thriller. You know?
It is, and like it's made really low budget, so it's kind of like the first one is like you can tell it's like folks, it's hanging on by a thread, like it's held together really loosely.
They didn't get any permits or anything, you know. They're filming at a national park illegally.
Well, the camp for the first one, like when I was in Scouts, being at summer camp, we would just talk Jason all the time. Thrilling, love it.
I wouldn't be able to go to summer camp. And you know, and talk about like I would be like, okay, Mom, Dad, you got to come get me. They're talking about Jason. And it's lights out soon, and...
Dude, we did this one mayor badge where we had to go, like, sleep in, like, a shelter that you made yourself. And it was in this, like, creepy thicket, and the counselor was scaring the shit out of us with, like, his stories. He was telling, like, urban legends and stuff. And I was like, I wasn't able to sleep a wink. I was, like, dying. But the funny thing is, the first one was filmed at a Boy Scout camp.
Okay.
And it's Novi Bosco, I think. But if you go to their website, there's like a hidden button that if you click it, it switches to a full-on Friday the 13th
okay, like a
website.
Crystal Lake website.
Yeah, with like a store and everything. They
cool.
really leaned into their like.
How many movies were there? There were like 13 or something. Or...
So there's 8 Paramount features,
okay,
and then the rights went to New Line for a little bit, and then have come back. Like the reboot into 2009 is Paramount again.
Okay,
and then there's been like. I have many a Friday the 13th treatment ideas. I've been there's been like reports that like Blumhouse wants to bring it back, or LeBron James was actually attached to like trying to bring it back. Like,
yeah, I could imagine
make a lot of money when it comes back.
I could imagine. Yeah, there's a lot of people like. I'm picturing kind of like, you know, A24.
Yeah,
you know, like that kind of aesthetic. There's probably a bunch of guys who
bring it in.
A bunch of people who want to do that. You know,
and then so like part 2 is. I think part 2 might be my favorite. Part two
to me, like, again, as an outsider, sounds like it's like the iconic one, where it's like, okay, now it is Jason, definitely. It's not like a mystery and his mom. And
it's definitely Jason. He doesn't have his mask yet.
Oh, okay. Now, so what, did she wear a mask in the first one?
No, she didn't have a mask either. This is going to make it pretty cool.
So like... I thought the hockey mask was from day one, and like, and then the mask comes off and it's the mom.
No.
Like, so what did she look like?
She didn't wear a mask. Like, the killer, you didn't see the killer. It was all POV shots up until she shows up at the end. She's like...
Oh, that's clever,
it's like a reveal. It's like a surprise.
That's kind of like a 70s thing, too. Like, in the 70s, that was kind of like the idea going around of, like, these, like, POV shots. And, and yeah, not showing a character or something.
Oh, like, part 2 is, like... We were talking about being jokey and stuff, but part 2 is objectively scary. It's like the scariest, in my opinion.
Not the first one.
It's even scarier than the first one. The first one scares the shit out of me. But the second one, like the last 20 minutes of part 2 are the best in the whole series.
Okay.
Like the finale, Amy Steele, like the chase scene. Like Steve Miner directed part 2 and 3, and he's like an actual like. He's a real craftsman director, so he can put together like a quality movie. And like the final chase in part 2 between Ginny and Jason is amazing. It's scary as hell.
I mean, that's great, you know, and those are like sort of like the classic 80s movies are like that, where they kind of build and build. Like, I mean, just thinking of like Aliens or something, you know, like it builds and builds, and then when you get to like the last, you know, 15 minutes of the movie, you're like, you can't believe how great it is.
Oh, yeah. Like, we gotta watch them. I would love to show y'all. Like, if I was showing a Friday the 13th to, like, somebody that hasn't seen any of them, part 4 is, like, maybe the halfway point. Like, the one you just be like, hey, take a look at this. This will show you what the series is all about. Give me an idea
what it is.
That's Corey Feldman.
Right. Yeah, that's a plus. So
love it.
Part 2... No hockey mask. What's the gimmick then?
He's got a bag over his head.
Okay, yeah, that sounds right. Okay, so...
And the setup is very scary.
Like a paper bag or a sack?
Like a sack with one eye hole.
Okay, that's creepy.
It is so creepy, Tom. And his look is a flannel shirt with overalls.
Now, the zombie... Oh, that's pretty... The Seattle look.
Yeah, he was like, even through.
So the early image of, like, Jason, just like the kind of, like, the... corpse that's at the bottom of the lake or whatever.
Yeah.
Did it have one eye or something? This like one eye in a bag thing?
So Tom Savini, Pittsburgh's own, did the special effects for the first movie and part 4, and success has many fathers. Right. So like whenever there was the fight for who created Jason, he's in the mix because he did the design work. Yeah. But like there's like people that vie for like, because Jason just popped, like Jason's mentioned in the script, but his appearance is at the very end, and Tom Savini says he thought of the gag of him jumping out for the scare. Yeah. So he technically like created Jason. Yeah,
that is an interesting question. Like I've been pondering the same thing, and I kind of want to do a video about the Dread Dormammu, or the Dread Dormammu, as Stan Lee would call him occasionally.
The Dread Dormammu.
Yeah. Because Dread Dormammu is a little bit like that. So I mean, coming soon. Dread Dormammu. I got my like detective hat, my Fox Foxing cap. I've been doing a little bit of investigating. My Deerstalker. Yeah.
That's hell yeah.
So that is an interesting question. What you're talking about, that issue that you're talking about, comes up a lot. It certainly comes up in comics where there's a written component and there's a visual component, and sometimes one comes before the other, and it's not clear which came first.
Your team, it's like a creative, like you're a creative team.
And so the Jason thing is kind of complicated too, because it's like, okay, you have a script mentioned that's like written by one guy, and then you have his like first appearance that it sounds like Tom Savini saying like he was responsible for that. And then you have like a third party or parties that it's like the one that gave him the mask. And then maybe even like what you're talking about with like the bag on it, there's like a step there too. So again, success has many fathers. That could be anywhere to 5 to 10 to 20 different people, when you put all those different pieces together to get the Jason
that we love. And like part 3 has the first, it's Steve Miner again. And Steve Miner, it was 3D.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And this Shelly, the character Shelly, brings the mask as like a scare tactic. Now, I think just like in the creation of the mask for Halloween, this one was, I think they thought it was going to be a catcher's mask or an umpire's mask. And they ended up, I don't know how they settled on the hockey mask, but it wasn't originally just going to be that.
That's interesting.
And, but like, as we'll see later in the series, just like in part 6, when somebody fucking buried Jason with his hockey mask and machete, why would you do that? They always bring his weapons and his mask to Crystal Lake. Mm-hmm. Like, I would avoid like no masks or machetes beyond this like premise.
Well, we were talking about like Halloween and how it was going to be like an Emmett Kelly sad clown.
Oh, that would have been scary.
And it was like, and they were like, "This is too scary." So like, but I would also think it's probably like too specific. Where like that iconic Michael Myers mask, the Shatner turned inside out or whatever it is. It's so like vague, and you're not sure what you're looking at, and that's kind of cool. That's kind of like and the bag. The sack on the head with one eye sounds kind of like that too, where it's like kind of creepy because it's like you're not quite sure what you're looking at. And like the Emmett Kelly's very specific.
Yeah, like with the Shatner mask too. Remember we were saying Shatner was trying to get like residuals.
Right? Yeah, he wants to claim that he owns the entire Halloween series, except for Halloween 3. But he's saying he still owns Halloween 3 because that mask shows up at a certain point. Now, so part 3, that's where the mask shows up, and somebody brings it. They're gonna like scare somebody,
and then Jason takes it and puts it on. And Richard Brooker plays Jason in part 3, and there was a different actor that played Jason in part 4. I think Corey Feldman brings a ton to the movie, and like I'm a Corey Feldman bagger.
Yeah, and that's part 4.
Part 4.
Yeah, part 4, because that's the one. That's the one I would also see. Like maybe it's in like some like horror documentaries or something. Like I'd always see the scene because he's like wearing like a monster mask, and he's playing Zaxxon on a computer, and it was the exact computer and exact Zaxxon game that I had when I was a kid. It was a Tandy Color Computer 2. Oh yeah, and they had this like amazing adaptation of Zaxxon on cassette. You put the cassette in it, so he's playing that. So that part stuck out to me.
In part 3, there's like elements of all these movies that like I like I'm gonna cherry pick for my own like
when you make your slasher
my Jason entry.
Yeah,
but In part 2, Jason has a shack in the woods, and the scary aspect is that I always thought was really creepy is there's a camp on one side of the lake, and Crystal Lake is like, or Camp Crystal Lake is like on the same lake, and they warn the people like, don't go over there. There was murders, and it scares the fuck out of me. And also,
that's like the former camp that had all kinds of horrible stuff, and so they moved it to the other side of the lake. So that
you stay away.
Rebrand.
And there's a campfire story in part 2. Like they sit around, tell the legend, which it's like, you know, it is a campfire story. So like,
all of these movies are, you know, and,
giving me goosebumps talking about this, and like
Halloween also. Well, I mean,
I love it.
The reason I'm asking you all this stuff is that like we watched Friday the 13th Part 6.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, but I don't think I'm ever gonna watch another Friday the 13th because for like a week, I couldn't eat.
It's so scary.
It was, I mean, because the movie itself, it's kind of cheesy, kind of goofy and stuff. And I liked the winking quality to it. I liked the James Bond thing where he slashes at the moon. But the thing that I couldn't get out of my mind, and so I like couldn't eat for a week, was
it in his grave?
Yeah, when they open up his grave,
it's so
and he's like all covered, like he's like just completely
so
rotted away. Which, you know, okay, whatever, like that's bad enough. But then he had those worms crawling on him, like real worms. They were super pink.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, it was just like, I couldn't get that.
Ron
like,
Palillo was lurking.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to do this to myself again. I don't want to have like a week where I'm like, spaghetti, no, you know.
Well, I'll fill you in more. Like, part 2, so Jason has a shack. And he took his mom's severed head from part 1.
Right. You know what else? Some of my knowledge comes from the NES game because I was a huge NES. Like I'd play anything on the NES and playing the game. And like Jason's mom's head is one of the bosses that you have to fight.
Oh yeah, like that was always, people were like, that's such a bad game.
Yeah.
Then me and my buddy were playing it and we're like, this game's fucking awesome, and it's scary. It's scary as shit.
I played the game a bunch, and it's super hard. I couldn't get anywhere in it. So like all this stuff about fighting his mom's head and stuff, I knew from like Nintendo Power Magazine. But whenever I'd play the game, you know, you wouldn't get very far, and then you'd die. But it is like a really good adaptation of that sort of slasher world where the deck is stacked against you. There's things on, and so that aspect of it is pretty cool. The one thing that, like when we were talking, like watching part 6, and you were saying like, oh yeah, don't worry, you know, none of the kids get hurt. Everything's like it's just the counselors. Yeah. But in the because in the NES game the kids do, but it's very abstract. But still kind of chilling, maybe even because of the abstraction, is like as you're making your way through the game, there's like so many like things you have to balance and things you have to do. And one of the things that goes on, if Jason's attacking and you take too long, the count of like campers goes down.
Know,
that's like a camper count.
And the kill screen when you die, that's become so famous. They put that on like t-shirts. Mm-hmm. It's like I can never get it right. It's like you and your friends are dead. Mm-hmm. You and all your friends have died or something like that.
Yeah, and because it is like you play a bunch of different characters who are located in different locations around Crystal Lake. And yeah, like I played the game and like I think there's points where it's like side scrolling, and then there's points where you go in the cabin, and the cabin's kind of like a maze, and Jason's in there, and it's like cartoony graphics, but the first person, it doesn't make it any less scary.
It's super scary, and like I'm frightened by it, and I consider that, you know, that game like is iconic. They release action figures with like the purple looking graphic Jason. Mm-hmm. I would love him.
I would like another crack at that game. I'm sure that's one of those NES games that's probably like a huge collector's item now.
Oh yeah, like definitely
like that's what, you know, there's some NES games you can pick up no problem. Then there's others that are like $100.
And the funny thing is, Jason that's on the cover of it is the Jason. It's a screen grab from part 7.
Okay.
So I can recognize the actual like kill on the game. And so Jason has a shrine to his mother's head. He has his mother's head like on this shrine in his shack. Mm-hmm. And Ginny, who's the lead in part 2, is really cool. Is they lay pipe where she's a child psychologist, so she uses that background to like talk Jason out of like get out of a jam at the end by like pretending to be his mom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty like, she puts the sweater on, it's a grody like the sweater.
Yeah, I think I knew about that. Again, it's like I've never seen one of these movies, but I kind of have this sense of it just from like hearing people, and like that one of like she kind of tries to do that thing, that sort of therapy thing where it's like, okay, I'm your mom now. Talk to me like I'm your mom.
Yeah.
And
then part 3, there's like, it's filmed in California, so it has like a dusty feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the like a group of like bikers, and I'm gonna utilize those kind of characters in like my own Friday the 13th, where there's like, I was gonna have like a group of like I don't know, like anti-heroes, like juvenile delinquents that are like in the 80s, have to like fix up Crystal Lake, and somebody's looking for his brother who went missing. Like the character that's there's like Fox, Ali, and I can't remember the other guy, but that's where the characters expand, and just for more victims for Jason.
Right, yeah, we need a bigger
palette to like kill them off.
Like just like working on the Transformers comic book and the Transformers versus G.I. Joe, and doing like fantastic foreground design. It is pretty sweet when you have this sort of long running thing, and then you can like cherry pick, when you're making your version. It's like, ooh, I want a scene like what happened in this one, and I want this one, and then you get like sort of like the best of all worlds, kind of.
Part 4 is the final chapter.
Right. The so-called final chapter, and then there's like 8 more movies, but yeah.
Directed by Joseph Zito, who did Invasion USA. So it's kind of like it's like your canon film. It's like, it's getting into the sleaze territory, kind of, but not really. That'll happen in part 5, where there's like a grindhouse director. I can't remember the guy's name, but part 4 is the beginning of the Tommy Jarvis trilogy.
Right. Yeah, we saw the end
middle
cap.
Oh yeah, that was the end.
We saw the final part of that trilogy.
Part 5 is A New Beginning, and it doesn't feature Jason at all in it.
Oh, they did like a Halloween 3.
They did a Halloween 3 where Jason is in the movie. Like, somebody is pretending to be Jason. We got to screen part 5.
So it's like a fake out where it reads like a Friday the 13th movie with Jason and everything, and then at a certain point you find out like, oh, it's not him.
The killer is Roy Burns, the ambulance driver, who he sees his son get murdered. It's one of the funniest. For somebody getting axe murdered, it's one of the most hilarious. We got to screen part 5. It's this dude. So there's this halfway house that Tommy Jarvis is staying at. And there's one of the people in the halfway house is eating this chocolate, and he has the chocolate smeared all around his mouth. He goes and tries to help people with this laundry, and he gets chocolate all over it. They tell him to hit the bricks. Then there's this psychopath with an axe who's chopping wood. He's just like insanely chopping wood like a maniac, and he comes over holding this candy bar. And he goes, he like annoys this maniac. He's not picking up on the psycho.
Right. Yeah.
And then he puts the candy bar down. The guy chops it, and then he like hacks him to bits with it. It is insane, and like it's crazy, and it's been great talking. And like 7 and 8, don't sleep on those either.
Okay. So yeah, I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion, and also the aforementioned WITCHMAN that is now going to be a reality thanks to a successful Kickstarter that is still running. So if you want to be a part of it, there's still time to join up.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And
we won't see you at Camp Crystal Lake because I'm not going anywhere within 100 miles of that place.